Good morning. My name is Cindy Hackett. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation. We serve you. As we begin our gathering, I respectfully acknowledge that I speak to you today from occupied Puyallup ancestral land. I pay respect to elders past and present, and I extend their respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. We welcome all who are joining us with a longing for community, the hope for peace, and who are seeking justice. We are a diverse congregation, and we encourage each one who comes through our doors to find their own truth and belief. We invite all to join us in a search for meaning and for community, guided by reason, respect for each other, and by love. The wonderful thing about this virtual platform that has become our church, our way to go to church, to be with each other, is that we have an opportunity to welcome guests from outside our traditional geographic area. And you probably saw that in the chats today. Someone has joined us from the Saltwater UU Church. Somebody has joined us from across the country. In past Sundays, we've even had people from across the ocean in England. So a very special welcome to our new friends and to our returning friends from near and far away. I invite you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Links to the video version of this service will be posted there this week, as well as on our website. You can find all of our program announcements this week in our e-news and listed on our church calendar. And generally, the link to the Zoom access will be there also. And it's a really quick and easy way to join in on what you'd like to, where you'd like to participate. But here are some highlights for the week. Following the worship service this morning, Nancy Slocum will host Kids Chapel at 11:30 a.m. At noon today, please join me and other members of the Ad Hoc Committee on Building and Ground Security for a discussion about safe parking, a Tacoma Pierce County Safe Parking Network pilot program. We'll talk about what safe parking is and how our community may choose to become involved. If you can't make this gathering, a second opportunity will be coming up Sunday, February 7th, again at noon. The Unitarian Universalist Association has several upcoming events for 30 Days of Love beginning this week. And you can find the link for that in the e-news, excuse me, or on our Facebook page. While not with us today, Joe Rettenmeyer joins us through this month of January, while Reverend Linda takes a much-deserved break to refresh and renew during a one-month sabbatical. Joe is a minister in the Unitarian Universalist Association, and on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., Joe will be hosting tea times on Zoom, so you can be in conversation with him during these times. He's also initiated a Vespers program on Friday evening, which you may enjoy. Next Sunday, we hope you join us for worship with Joe Rettenmeyer and his sermon, An Inauguration of Imagination. Links for all of our programs can be found in the weekly e-news or via the events on our church calendar. We thank you, and we're extremely grateful for your ongoing financial support to our congregation that makes all of this possible. The programs, our staff who create and facilitate the programs, and the connections that we make through our congregation. And this morning we welcome Reverend Tandy Rogers, who will be speaking to us from her heart, as she always does. Now, let us prepare to gather in worship.
This worship service is for those who are participating in the Martin Luther King Day celebrations and teach-ins tomorrow online, who take the time to really ground yourself in the imagination and prophetic imperative that we are called to become. Dr. King cast a beautiful, inclusive image. And if we are quiet and close our eyes, we can probably conjure his words from the I Have a Dream speech. And then he tasked us with co-creating that very world we dream about. But make no mistake that Dr. King was not an optimistic cheerleader or dreamer. There was also rage like a deep river in Lamentation. I refer you to his letter from Birmingham jail. This worship service is also for those who are still hung over with grief from these past weeks and are gingerly trying to muster hope. We Unitarian Universalists are known for our optimism. We don't often grieve well. Many of us don't rage well, as that wouldn't be polite. And it's certainly unbecoming to be out of control. Let me be clear, that was sarcasm. We are struggling so much to stay in control of ourselves that it is literally hurting our hearts, literally. We have to find ways to let that grief and rage out. We aren't versed in ways of lamentation. And yet that is the way through to this new story, this new way of being. So come, let us lament together, and then imagine and create. May this worship soothe, rile, open, ignite, comfort, and inspire. Many of us have a chalice nearby to light, along with the one lit in our home congregation right there with Nancy. I also encourage you to have your journal nearby or a blank piece of paper to write on as you are inspired. These are thinly veiled times. We designed this service to care for those tender parts of yourself. Our congregation has taken to lighting another candle. And I've got one here, and Nancy's got our communal candle there. Because these are historic times. I bring to you a prayer that I'm going to put right into my candle. This is a prayer from Reverend Elizabeth Wynn. For Black, Indigenous, Muslim, Latina, elected officials, for the residents of Washington, D.C. and capitals across the United States, for each of us who has ever been handcuffed or tear gassed or afraid of police or white supremacists or our government, for each of us who is afraid every day for ourselves or our loved ones or our children or this country. May we be protected. May we be protected from generations of violence and hate, from pandemic and sickness and fear. May we be protected not because we have earned it, but because of the generous grace of justice and spirit. And may those of us who can be protected, protect. Be pourers of tea for ourselves and others. Builders of power for love for ourselves and others. Reminders to breathe and eat and fight and tend, to rest and risk so that all may be protected. And in our doubt and stress, may we rest in the air and the earth and the sky that have seen governments come and go, despots and haters come and go, that hold our bones and our breath with sacredness and survival. Words from the Senator-elect Reverend Raphael Warnock. Will we play political games with real people while real people suffer? Or will we win righteous fights together, shoulder to shoulder? Will we seek to destroy one another or heed the call toward the common good, building together what Dr. King called the beloved community? May it be survival and justice. May it be shoulder to shoulder. May it be beloved community. This is our prayer.
Now we will light our chalice and read together in unison as best we can, the unison reading that Reverend Ken Jones brought us. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Slocum. I am the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth here at Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation. Oh, this is our time for all ages, a time with when typically we'd have kids come up and join us up front. And let me just say, I miss all you guys. I can't wait till we're back together again. It'll be a good day. But today, I want to share a little experience I had recently. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was just having one of those days. You know, those days where nothing seemed to go right, where I was tired and I didn't feel great and I was cranky a little and just feeling a bit down. And the day went on and I heard a noise out on the front porch and I realized that the postman had come and delivered the mail. And we don't usually get a whole lot of mail other than junk mail, the occasional bill, of course, but usually there's nothing really exciting in the mail. But when I went out to get the mail, there was a letter addressed to me from a friend of mine. And I hadn't heard from this friend for quite a while. And I was so pleased. I brought it inside and I sat down and I read it and he just said he was thinking of me. And he wanted me to know that he was thinking of me and that I mattered to him. And he'd cut out a little cartoon from the paper that he thought I would enjoy and another little clipping from the paper. And I gotta say that when I got that letter and sat down with it, all of a sudden my mood started to lift. That bit of crankiness I was feeling, it went away. The tiredness I was feeling, it went away. That card that he sent me was a very kind thing for him to do. I found myself feeling better and better with his kindness. And I got to thinking that right now, I think we could all use a little more kindness in our life. We've been cooped up with this pandemic. And sometimes it feels really hard. We can't see the people we want to see, can't get together with our friends. And then our country, our whole country has been on edge for the last months with the recent election. And the time between the election and now when we're getting ready to inaugurate our new president, there's been some things happening in our country where people have been angry and they've acted in angry and scary ways. It's been unsettling to watch these things happening. And many of us are feeling the heaviness of this. And that's hard. And then I heard someone say, what we need is a kindness uprising. Kindness uprising. Rather than an uprising of angry, hateful, hurtful actions, let's all rise up and work to spread kindness and love in our world. So the last couple of weeks in Kids Chapel, we've been talking about that. We've been talking about kindness and a kindness uprising and how do we spread kindness out into the world. And I want to invite everybody here, everybody in the congregation, not just the kids and adults, to join us in a kindness uprising. Let's spread kindness to our families, to our friends and neighbors, to our communities, out in the world. And let's also remember to be kind to ourselves. Sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves. Now is a good time, a really good time to be gentle with ourselves and to treat ourselves kindly. So what might you do as a kindness to others? How many different ways might you spread kindness? We talked about it in our kids' chapel, and I just love some of the ideas that people came up with. One person said, give homeless people food. This one, to respect other people's beliefs, rather than disagreeing with somebody saying, I have a different belief. Now that's heavy stuff for kids to say. Play with others. Help out around the house. Write letters, just like my friend did for me. Smile and wave at a stranger. Listen, really listen to others. You might find that you agree with some or all of what they're saying. Be supportive of people when they don't know something and are asking questions. And this one I really like. If you disagree with somebody, you can start by saying, I respectfully disagree. What a kind way to disagree with somebody, by saying, I respectfully disagree. We have some amazing kids in our group here and some amazing ways to spread kindness. So I want to encourage us to go forward with a kindness uprising. And I'd love for people to let me know what kinds of things you do. And we can share those ideas with each other and just keep spreading kindness out in the world. Because I think that as much as the bad feelings can take over, we can help lighten those by spreading kindness out in the world. It's a way Tandy talked about imagining and creating. And it's one of the things we can do, imagine and create. I thank you for listening to this time for all ages. And as you leave today, I'll say the words we use here in our sanctuary as you leave for classes. We hold you in our love as you go, May your hearts be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go. Take care.
Thank you, Nancy. I want to use this opportunity to transition to a moment of generosity, and just hearing about kindness and thinking about generosity. There's a fantastic song by Natalie Merchant that now I'm not going to be able to get out of my head about kind and generous. So let's not forget the kindness, but let's take a moment to think about how we can be generous to this place that means so much to us. And we can't pass the basket, but in the chat, I put some information about how you can go to a website and donate, or you can text a donation. There are ways for you to give. So I invite you to do so. I'm going to share some words by Brandick L. Lovely to inspire us here. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now keepers of the dream. Thank you. I am going to lead us in the dedication of the offering. And maybe, Nancy, you can help me by doing the pasting at this point. Sorry about that, everybody. As the words come up, please join me. These are offered to us by the Reverend Bill Graves. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls.
Thank you, Scott. That was wonderful. For our first reading, we have an excerpt from Dr. Toni Morrison's amazing book, Beloved. When warm weather came, baby Suggs, holy, followed by every Black man, woman, and child who could make it through, took her great heart to the clearing, a wide open place cut deep in the woods, nobody knew for what, at the end of the path known only to deer and whoever cleared the land in the first place. In the heat of every Sunday afternoon, she sat in the clearing while the people waited among the trees. After situating herself on a huge, flat-sided rock, baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the trees. They knew when she was ready. They knew she was ready when she put her stick down. And then she shouted, "Let the children come!" And they ran from the trees toward her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she told them, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. Then, "Let the grown men come," she shouted. They stepped out one by one from among the ringing trees. "Let your wives and your children see you dance," she told them, and the ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called to the women. "Cry," she told them, "for the living and the dead. Just cry." And without covering their eyes, the women let loose. It started that way, laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got mixed up. Women stopped crying and danced. Men sat down and cried. Children danced. Women laughed. Children cried, until, exhausted and riven, all and each lay about the clearing, damp and gasping for breath. In the silence that followed, baby Suggs, holy, offered up to them her great, big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives or go and sin no more. She did not tell them they were the blessed of the earth, its inheriting meek or its glory-bound pure. She told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine, that if they could not see it, they would not have it. Here, she said, in this here place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass. Love it hard.
The next reading. Thank you, Cindy. Perfect. The next reading is by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote these words in Cleveland, Ohio on April 26th, 1967. Okay, 1967. Now, this is all I'm saying this morning, that we must feel that we count, that we belong, that we are persons, that we are children of the living God. And it means that we go down in our soul and find that somebodyness, that we must never again be ashamed of ourselves. We must never be ashamed of our heritage. We must not be ashamed of the color of our skin. Black is as beautiful as any color, and we must believe it. Our power does not lie in Molotov cocktails. Our power does not lie in bricks and stones. Our power does not lie in bottles. Our power lies in our ability to unite around concrete programs. Our power lies in our ability to say nonviolently that we aren't going to take it any longer. You see, the chief problem with a riot is that it can always be halted by a superior force. But I know another weapon that the National Guard can't stop. We are going to win our freedom because both the sacred heritage of our nation and the eternal will of the Almighty God are embodied in our echoing demands. And I say so. Let us keep moving. Let us move on toward the goal of brotherhood, toward the goal of personal fulfillment, toward the goal of a society undergirded by justice. 1967. Rather than asking people, how are you? Because how do you even answer these days? Pandemic fine? I've been asking people, how are you coping? How is your spiritual practice? My wife and I established a spiritual practice 4 years ago. Do the math. It was in response. We established this spiritual practice 4 years ago of a morning family chapel in which we spend a week with a piece of scripture and music woven together with meditation. We use everything from traditional hymns and holy texts to pop music and passages from books that we are reading. Last week, Sue picked up a text from the Upanishad, a very, very ancient scripture. Now, spending time with something so old and timeless, ageless, gave me comforting perspective. Kind of like what Reverend Elizabeth Wen alluded to in her prayer, that the earth and the sky have seen governments come and go, despots come and go, our lamentations. So it gave me this perspective. I'm in touch with this present time and its challenges and blessings, and at the same time, this text cosmically turned me inside out. It reminded me that I'm one with the lineage of the translators and the original experience. Now, what rose out of this meditation were 3 simple words: lamentation, imagination, creation. And I believe these to be some sort of instructions. This sermon did not come to me in the normal linear fashion, not that I have ever been known to be linear. People who know me are probably chuckling, not very linear. What I'm trying to say is that my brain is very much like many of yours in this moment, pandemic brain. And pandemic brain equals pandemic sermon. And I think that's okay. I'm going to trust that it's okay, falling on pandemic ears and pandemic heart. So get out your journals and markers and see what comes up for you. Lamentation, imagination, creation. Lamentation. Most of us are in a state of high anxiety, a product of fear and gaslighting from on high. Anxiety to the point of hallucinating divisions that I really don't believe are entirely there. We feel overwhelmed and queasy, bursting into tears or rages. Friends, this is grief. Progressives don't do grief well. We're a people rather optimistic. And I interrogate my own optimism. I find it to be a survival skill left over from a time when I needed to control something to keep going. But if I surrender to this wave of grief, I can open to the gifts of lamentation. Surrender. Break open. Gnash your teeth and tear your clothing, and there in your grief, may you find teachings. Like, what is important? What is at risk? Grief can be muddy, messy, and as you go through it, a clarity hopefully comes of what is really important, what is core and true, what is your work, and what is somebody else's work, and clarity on what is God's work. Lamentation can be a kind of deconstruction, a letting go. So take a moment and just think about or write, what are you grieving right now? What is this grief pointing to that is important, that you might know in a new way? Take that moment. I also invite you to reflect on, how are you letting yourself grieve? What does grief look like for you? I tell people in my spheres, it's time to gather your posse. And by that, I mean a therapist and a spiritual director and all the people that help you be the healthy person that you want to be. And the friends. I hope that you have a friend or a loved one that you can just fall apart with. That is my wish for you. One of them. So we come to imagination. Toni Morrison's Baby Sugg says that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine. I honestly struggle with that. Could that be true? That the only grace they could have was the grace that they could imagine. But then I also trust Morris's wisdom, which is deep. I have been pondering that line in the book for weeks, months now, actually. Here's what I have to say about grace and imagination. Grace in a religious sense is unmerited mercy given by God. That phrase comes from our sacred scripture, Webster's Dictionary. I believe that we humans can be ambassadors, or called to be ambassadors of that grace. Give that grace lavishly. Give that unmerited mercy out lavishly into the world. Now, some Unitarian Universalists are going to mutter under their breath, what is this God? I know who some of you are. You can fuss at me later. I'm talking about the God of your understanding, of your imagining and beyond. And here is where faith comes in. I believe in a God so large that it would blow our minds to fully know this God. This God is beyond scientific measurements. And so faith is required to believe in this God, in this grace. A faithful imagination, if you will. And imagination requires faith. Imagination is the forming of ideas. images or concepts not present to our senses. Imagination is a kind of spiritual practice, I think. And have you heard what is a spiritual practice? The spiritual practice that Tandy keeps talking about. A spiritual practice comes from three things: intention, attention, and repetition. Intention, attention, repetition. That equals spiritual practice. And it can only be as expansive, this faithful imagination can only be as expansive as our experience and our liberation. And so there is a justice imperative there. Our survival depends on imagination. My survival depends on your imagination being liberated in service to the greater whole. Are you following me? It's hard to have an imagination during these pandemics. It's not your fault. Our brains are designed that way. Our brain senses that we are in danger, and it shuts down parts of itself to preserve energy. We have access to 6 responses in stress: fight, flight, freeze. Those are the ones I learned early on, but then there's some others. Beyond freeze, fight, flight, fight, freeze, flood, fawn, and fatigue. Sometimes a number of those all at once. So these days, when my usually imaginative brain is having a hard time making it through the fog, I stop and I think, how am I responding to the stress? And what do I need? And I'm extra gentle with myself, and I hope you are too. And then I also kind of trust that if I go belly up and surrender and take care of what I can, that imagination is going to come back. And it always does. So then this brings me to the word creation. Creation. Create, creativity. I was talking about a new project with an elder, and I said I wasn't sure that this was the best time to bring into fruition something brand new in such a chaotic and liminal time. At this time, I struggle to finish sentences and find the right words, for goodness sake, to try to bring on a whole new initiative. I didn't know if I was the right person or the right time. And this elder took me to task. She said that this was the perfect time. That actually, in these liminal times, is where creation and creativity can bubble up. So that self-care then becomes a radical kind of ministry unto myself. We're not going to go fast and be ultra productive. We're going to go slow and we're going to go deep. So spiritual practices are part of that spiritual care. She asked me also to check my privilege and perhaps the discomfort and anxiety I was experiencing. Perhaps that this was me being off center. So I examined my feelings and the source, which I highly recommend in almost any situation, and a flood of creativity came back to me. So these are liminal limbic times. When I say limbic, I'm talking about, our cerebral cortex. Our brain goes down into that limbic part of our brains. But you know what? That's where religious technology lives also. We Unitarian Universalists, we love to think that it all lives in our cerebral cortex because, we love our intellect. But most religious technologies live down in our limbic brains. So this is our time. These are our times. Religious community has all sorts of technologies that speak to and inspire limbic systems. We were made for these times, so reclaim it. Allow that creativity to inform and design our formation So creativity is a bridge, a way through. And by those technologies, what I'm talking about is narrative, ritual, songs. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know how many dry eyes when Cynthia was reading Toni Morrison. That's the kind of religious technology I'm talking about. It brings up, it helps us lament. It helps us get back to creativity. One of the things that can squash creativity is anxiety, and anxiety is contagious. And we have choices with how we take care of ourselves. As religious leaders, our people need us to show non-anxious leadership. They will look to us for clues as to how we respond. So if you need help, like I said, gather your posse, therapist, mentor, spiritual director, colleagues, good friends, an advisor, people on this call, people in this worship service. We are not alone. And remember that we choose together who and what we want to be. And we can't do this until we fully immerse ourselves in lamentation. So I come back around to lamentation. We need our hands empty of attachments, or at least to have a real discernment as to what is permanent and what is transient. So this creation, this becoming, our becoming, we are collectively becoming through this pandemic. I mean, we always are, but especially now it feels like we are being pushed through a fire. May this be our collective liberation. I have been clutching Adrienne Marie Brown's book, Emergent Strategy, in one hand, and Margaret Wheatley's, Who Do We Choose to Be, as almost my security blankets, as my blueprints for my formation, my becoming, and my creation. That's Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy and Margaret Wheatley's Who Do We Choose to Be? So what have we learned in this chaotic liminal time that informs who we want to be now? We will be exploring this as a religious community in the days to come. We have a chance to reinvent in a courageous, bold way, and we can't lose this moment. So here is our work. Lamentation, imagination, creation. Let's take some time, take a moment before we move into a prayer space to listen for what is rising in you. What intention is asking to be brought into creation? What clarity are you gaining from lamentation? Just take a moment. Imagination can be the fuel and the bridge between lamentation and creation. I think I said that incorrectly. Let me start over. Imagination can be the fuel and the bridge between lamentation and creation. We can hold them both, especially in community. So take a moment and think about what you are holding in your heart and hands. What are you grieving? What is creatively emerging for you right now? In a moment, you will be invited to distill down into a word or phrase and put that into the chat. And out of that will come a communal prayer. I will start, and then Scott and Nancy will read your contributions, your word or phrases out loud. God of our understanding, we come together this day to nourish and be nourished, to be blessed and be a blessing, to make sense of the world, let go of our need to make sense, to clarify our purpose as individuals and as religious people. We come with heaviness on our hearts. We come with lightness and things we want to share with delight. And we bring all of this to community.
Tears and healing.
Vulnerability.
Change and healing.
Wisdom.
Expansion of chosen family.
Forgiveness with compassion.
Courage.
Open heart.
Forgiveness and healing.
Feeling like the frog in the boiling pot of water, ready to leap out.
Patience.
Kindness to all.
Breath.
Letting go of anger.
Service.
Belonging.
Transcendence.
Dance like no one is watching. Stop caring who might be watching.
Truly reaching beyond these walls and serving our local community.
Self-love.
Spirit of life and love. Hold each of these petitions sweetly close to you. Community gathered here, hold each of these petitions sweetly and closely. These petitions, these prayers, make us holy and whole. May we find new ways to reach out to each other, to be present to each other as we find our way through into a new becoming. Amen. We are releasing the flame from our special candle. I send the light to those that need safety and protection, calm, comfort. May those prayers go out into the world.
We will extinguish our chalice using the words that we recite when we're together We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now for our closing blessing song, we are blessed to hear from Zyriel Oliver Chandler.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live.
I offer these closing words. Today and in the days to come, double down on your spiritual practices so that you can be as centered as you can be. And in those times when you are off center, be gentle. Be so gentle with yourself. Reach out to your religious community here. We are better together. Amen.